Episode 1, The Bell That Rang Without Hands. The night the bell first rang, Father Lucian thought it was the wind. But there was no wind. No storm. No living soul within miles of the mountain. He stood at the base of the cathedral's stone steps, watching the heavy bronze bell swing back and forth inside the tower, howling into the fog like something alive. The sound didn't echo, it bled, spreading through the valley as if the earth itself were trembling in prayer. The cathedral had been abandoned for decades. Its doors warped, its saints faceless, its confessionals sealed shut. Yet that night, it called to him, a moan disguised as faith. Inside, candles flickered on their own. The pews creaked like bodies turning in sleep. Lucian's breath misted before him, and he whispered a prayer, more to himself than to God. Then he heard it. A sigh. Soft, feminine. Coming from the altar. He froze. The sound grew clearer, a slow exhale, then words, whispered between gasps. Forgive me, for wanting more than heaven. Lucian's heart pounded. The voice wasn't human, it was aching. Like a confession too long buried. He raised his crucifix. Who's there? Silence. Only the distant hum of the bell above, still swaying though no rope pulled it. And then, the altar trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The floor beneath him shivered, as if the cathedral itself was breathing. Lucian stumbled backward, staring at the statue of the Virgin. Tears of stone streamed down her cheeks. The bell stopped. And in the silence that followed, he realized. The cathedral had been waiting for someone to return. Someone like him. Episode 2, The Woman Behind the Veil. Morning crept into the cathedral like a thief, slow, guilty, and silent. Father Lucian hadn't slept. The echo of that woman's whisper still clung to the air, sweet as incense, heavy as sin. He wandered through the nave with trembling fingers grazing the cracked walls, until his touch stopped on something smooth, a sheet of fabric nailed over a fresco. Beneath it, faint shapes hid in the dust. A face. A curve. A shadow of flesh. He hesitated. Then, with a sharp pull, the cloth tore free. What lay beneath stole the breath from his lungs. A painting, centuries old, of a woman half-veiled, half-naked, her eyes closed in ecstasy or prayer. Her lips parted. Around her neck, a rosary gleamed like a chain of tears. At the bottom corner, a faint signature glimmered through layers of age. Sister Magdalena. The name rang through his memory, a legend, whispered by the elders of the church. A nun who vanished after claiming she had felt the breath of God inside her. Lucian stepped closer. The woman's painted eyes opened. He stumbled back, heart hammering. The veil in the painting fluttered though no wind moved. For an instant, he swore her lips curved, not in prayer, but in desire. And then, from behind the altar, that same voice whispered again. Do you believe, Father? Or do you only obey? The candles flared. The bell trembled once. Lucian turned toward the sound, but saw only the empty pews staring back, like witnesses afraid to speak. He fell to his knees, crossing himself, but his whisper cracked halfway through the prayer. Because for the first time since his ordination, he wasn't sure who he was praying to. Episode 3, Flesh Under the Altar. The third night, Father Lucian decided to uncover the truth. If sin had a sound, it lived in that cathedral, pulsing through the stones, breathing through the cracks of faith. He lit a single candle and approached the altar. The marble surface was cold, veined with time, and beneath it, the air carried a strange scent, part incense, part iron, part something alive. He knelt, whispering a psalm to steady his hands. But the moment he pressed his palm against the lower frame, he felt it, a heartbeat. Slow. Faint. Coming from inside the altar. His breath caught. He pried open a loose plank, the wood creaking like a sigh released after years of silence. Dust spilled out, followed by something darker, dried crimson marks smeared across the stone floor. And there, embedded in the wood, were scratches. Deep. Desperate. Finger marks. He traced them gently, and when his fingertips brushed the deepest groove, a voice rippled through the silence. Soft. Female. Familiar. I begged him to stop, but heaven kept watching. Lucian froze. Inside the cavity, a small book lay wrapped in decaying linen. He opened it, and the smell of blood greeted him. It wasn't written in ink. Each page glistened faintly red. Words carved in feverish strokes. I felt his hands beneath the holy cloth. I thought it was God. I was wrong. Sister Magdalena. Lucian's candle flickered, trembling like his faith. Behind him, the Virgin statue cracked down the center, and a drop of white liquid slid from her breast. He turned, terrified, yet entranced. For a moment, he thought he saw her move. And in that fleeting, blasphemous instant, Father Lucian understood why the cathedral still shook. It was not haunted by the devil. It was haunted by pleasure that heaven never forgave. Episode 4, The Confession That Moaned. Father Lucian could no longer tell the difference between prayer and obsession. Every night, he heard it, that soft, trembling breath that slid through the cracks of the cathedral, brushing against his ear like silk soaked in sin. He followed it one evening to the old confessional booth, its door half rotten, its curtain torn. The air was damp and heavy with the scent of wax and old wood. He stepped inside, his pulse steady at first, then not. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," a voice whispered from the other side. It was the same voice. Low. Sultry. Wounded. Lucian froze. "Who are you?" The woman chuckled softly, her breath ghosting through the lattice between them. "You already know. You've touched where I once prayed." The memory of the altar flashed through his mind, the scratches, the heartbeat, the blood. His chest tightened. "What do you want from me?" "I want to be forgiven," she sighed. "But not by God. By the one who replaced him." The wood between them began to creak, the confessional shivering as if alive. Candlelight flickered crimson through the holes in the screen. And then, a hand. Pale. Delicate. Reaching through the lattice. Her fingers brushed his cheek, warm as flesh, cold as death. Lucian's breath caught. "You can't be real." The hand lingered on his lips, tracing the trembling edges of faith. "Then why," she murmured, "do you tremble when I confess?" The bell above the cathedral groaned once, long and mournful. When Lucian opened his eyes again, he was alone. Yet his lips still burned where the ghost had touched him. And outside, the cathedral moaned with him, as if echoing her pleasure. Episode 5, The Night the Cross Bled White. The storm arrived without thunder, only light. A pale, trembling light that spilled through the cracked stained glass, painting the cathedral in ghostly veins of silver and milk. Father Lucian woke to the sound of dripping. Not rain. Something thicker. Warmer. He followed the sound through the nave, his candle trembling with every step. The crucifix above the altar loomed in the shadows, the body of Christ stretched, his marble lips parted in eternal agony. And from his chest, flowed white. Lucian froze. A milky substance slid down the cross, glistening in the candlelight, pooling at the base like melted wax. The air grew sweet, unbearably so, like lilies left too long at a grave. He knelt, whispering a broken prayer. Sanctify this place, cleanse what lingers. But the words faltered. Because the scent, it wasn't death. It was desire. He looked up, and the statue's eyes were open. Lucian, a voice breathed, dripping from the walls. You prayed for purity, but you were never pure. The candle went out. Only the glow of the cross remained, throbbing faintly like a living heart. He stumbled backward, but his feet slipped, the marble floor slick beneath him. He reached for balance and his hand met the altar again, warm, almost pulsing. Then the bell rang. Once. Twice. And the walls quivered like flesh. Lucian fell to his knees, tears and sweat mingling on his face. He felt her presence everywhere, in the breath of the storm, in the trembling of the floor, in the white tears that ran from the crucifix. Magdalena, he whispered. What have you done? A whisper brushed his ear. What we began, Father. Heaven could never wash away. The cathedral shook harder. The cross bled brighter. And Lucian finally understood, purity was never what God demanded. It was what men feared. Episode 6, Magdalena's Touch. Father Lucian woke to the sound of his own heartbeat. Loud. Uneven. Too human for holiness. The dawn was pale, but the cathedral still throbbed faintly, its walls breathing, its air thick with something that felt like warmth and guilt intertwined. His robe clung to him with cold sweat, and on his chest, a red mark burned in the shape of lips. He pressed his hand over it, whispering, Deliver me, Lord. But the name Lord felt strange in his mouth now, as if it no longer belonged to the heavens. A whisper quailed through the silence. Do you really want to be delivered, Lucian? He spun around. She stood there, not quite ghost, not quite flesh. Her form shimmered like candlelight seen through tears. Barefoot, veiled, her habit torn open at the chest where the heart should be. Sister Magdalena. Her eyes were fire and sorrow mixed. You came where he left me, she said softly. You touched the altar where I bled. Lucian's throat tightened. You were real. Her smile was heartbreak. I am real. Every prayer denied, every desire buried, I am the echo of them all. She stepped closer. He could smell her, incense and rain. Her hand reached for his cheek, trembling with something too tender to be sin. The moment her fingers touched his skin, the cathedral sighed. Images flooded his mind, her hands clutching the cross, her lips whispering to heaven for forgiveness, and for more. Lucian gasped, collapsing to his knees. Why me? Magdalena leaned close, her breath grazing his ear. Because you still tremble when you pray. The candles flared white. The bell above moaned once, long and low. And in that moment, beneath the gaze of the bleeding Christ, Father Lucian felt the first shiver of heaven's most forbidden miracle. To be touched by something that should not love him back. Episode 7, The Saint Who Desired Her. The next evening, the cathedral was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes guilt louder. Father Lucian sat before the statue of Saint Aurelius, the patron of purity. But tonight, the saint's face looked different. The marble eyes, once calm, now shimmered with something close to hunger. Lucian traced the inscription at its base, Blessed are those who renounce flesh. He whispered the words, but they cracked halfway out of his throat. Because on the saint's chest, carved deep into stone, was a handprint, small, delicate, unmistakably feminine. He leaned closer, his breath trembling. And from within the cold marble, a voice murmured, She prayed to him before she prayed to God. Lucian staggered back. It was Magdalena's voice. The statue's lips parted slightly, and from that still mouth came a whisper. She thought he was divine because he loved her when heaven would not. Visions poured into Lucian's mind. Aurelius alive, mortal, once a priest before sainthood. A young nun kneeling before him, her veil slipping. His trembling hands blessing what he should have condemned. Lucian fell to his knees. Saint Aurelius, you desired her? The stone trembled. And for a heartbeat, the saint's eyes turned flesh and wet with tears. I desired her, the voice confessed, because she believed that love could be holy. The candles dimmed. A gust of wind tore through the cathedral, scattering him pages like fallen wings. Lucian looked up at the bleeding cross above. Now he saw it clearly, the same longing in its sculpted agony. The same impossible ache to touch what must not be touched. And then Magdalena's whisper returned, soft and trembling. He wasn't the only one, Father. The bell groaned once more. Lucian's heart answered it. Because deep inside, something sacred, and terribly human, was awakening. Episode 8, The Cathedral That Shook Alone. The night came heavy, thick with the weight of unspoken prayers. Father Lucian sat in the center of the nave, surrounded by the quiet pulse of something alive beneath the stone. The air was hot, almost trembling, as if the cathedral itself waited, listening, remembering. He lit no candles this time. He wanted the darkness. He wanted the truth to show itself without light. From the depths of the altar, a low hum began, soft at first, like the purr of an unseen creature. Then it grew, rising into a deep vibration that rolled through the pews, the walls, the very bones of the place. The cathedral was shaking again. Lucian stood, gripping the edge of the altar. Magdalena, he whispered. Show yourself. The bell above screamed. Windows shattered, shards raining down like frozen tears. The crucifix tilted, groaning, as if even the image of Christ could no longer bear to watch. And through the whirlwind of dust and echoes, she appeared. Her form glowed faintly, wrapped in the torn fabric of a nun's habit. Veil fluttering, bare feet hovering above the trembling floor. Her eyes burned with longing that no heaven could forgive. Do you see now? She said, her voice both music and sorrow. It's not the earth that trembles, it's the memory of what we were denied. Lucian's heart pounded like a second bell. You and Saint Aurelius. She smiled sadly. He believed our love could make heaven real. The church called it blasphemy. They sealed me beneath this altar to silence my sin. The floor split open, releasing a breath of ancient heat. Bones gleamed below, her bones, bound in rosary chains. Lucian fell to his knees, tears blinding him. You shouldn't be here. Magdalena touched his face, soft as prayer, fierce as temptation. I never left, Father. I was the faith they buried alive. And as her words faded into the shaking walls, the cathedral moaned like a living thing. Outside, the valley trembled. Inside, faith and desire became one. And for the first time in a century, the cathedral stopped shaking, as if it had finally been touched by truth. Episode 9, The Kiss Beneath the Cross. The dawn never came. Only a bruised half-light, trembling between storm clouds, painted the cathedral in hues of ash and sorrow. Father Lucian stood before the broken altar, the scent of dust and sanctity mixing in the air. Below him lay the uncovered bones of Sister Magdalena, her remains pale and delicate, bound in a rosary that had long since rusted into her ribs. He should have buried her. He should have prayed. Instead, he whispered her name like a secret lover's vow. Magdalena. And she came. Not as ghost nor saint, but as something reborn. Her body shimmered, woven of smoke and memory, her veil flowing like a shadow that remembered its light. When she opened her eyes, the entire church seemed to breathe. "Father," she said, voice trembling between pleasure and pain, "do you still believe sin can't be holy?" Lucian's lips quivered. "I don't know what to believe anymore." "Then stop believing," she whispered, stepping closer. "And feel." He reached out, hesitantly, reverently, and their hands met. The air broke open. The bell rang on its own, wild and uneven. Candles burst into flame without wicks. The crucifix above them dripped again, white and endless. She drew him toward her, and beneath the bleeding cross, their mouths met. The kiss was not of lust, it was of resurrection. A communion of what heaven rejected and hell envied. The cathedral roared. The windows screamed light. Every statue wept, every hymn cracked, every wall pulsed like the heart of a dying god. And when the tremor ceased, Lucian's tears mixed with hers. In the silence, he saw it, her reflection fading, her voice soft and eternal. "You see, Father, when we loved, even heaven shook." Then she was gone. Only the rosary remained, warm, glowing faintly between his fingers. And above, for the first time, the cross bled red. Episode 10, The Miracle of Sin. The storm that had hung over the mountains finally broke. Rain lashed against the cathedral's shattered windows, thunder rolling like the voice of a god too tired to judge. Father Lucian knelt before the altar, soaked in candlelight and doubt. Magdalena's rosary still glowed faintly in his hands, each bead pulsing as if alive. He pressed it to his lips. "What have we done?" From the shadows, her voice drifted like a hymn sung by the dead. "What heaven refused, we completed." Her shape emerged again, not ghostly this time, but radiant. Flesh and faith intertwined. The storm seemed to bend around her, every drop of rain slowing as if in reverence. Lucian trembled. "You're not supposed to exist." She smiled, a smile filled with both grace and sorrow. "Neither is love that bleeds." The floor beneath them glowed, the cracks in the marble spilling light instead of dust. The bell rang without sound, vibrating inside their chests. Every statue bowed its head. The crucifix straightened itself, dripping the last of its white tears. And then, silence. Lucian felt it before he saw it, her hand on his heart. Not to tempt him, but to bless him. "For centuries," she whispered, "they've called it sin. But tell me, Father, how can love that shakes heaven not be divine?" The rosary in his hand shattered, not in destruction, but in release. The beads rose, glowing like stars, circling the cathedral before vanishing into the storm. Magdalena's form faded with them. Her last words lingered, tender and defiant. "Faith isn't purity, Lucian. Faith is surrender." When dawn finally broke, the cathedral stood still for the first time in 100 years. No bell rang. No voice called. Yet deep beneath the altar, something new began to beat. Steady, eternal, alive. A miracle born of sin. Epilogue, the pulse of heaven. They found Father Lucian 3 days later. Kneeling before the altar, eyes closed, lips parted in a faint smile, as if caught mid-prayer or mid-dream. The rain had washed the dust from his robes, but his hands still clutched a single white rose that hadn't wilted despite the cold. The Vatican sealed the cathedral again. They called it a site of desecration, buried every record, burned every photograph. Yet no one could explain why, when they boarded the doors, the ground beneath it shivered, softly, rhythmically, like a sleeping heart. Those who dared to listen at night said they could hear it. A faint, steady thump, echoing through the stone. as though the cathedral itself was alive. Centuries later, the story of Sister Magdalena became myth. A tale whispered by those who loved too deeply, prayed too wildly, or sinned too beautifully. Some say she was a spirit of temptation. Others believe she was an angel sent to remind mankind that holiness was never meant to be sterile. But the locals, they know better. Because sometimes, when the sky bruises violet and the wind hums through the valley, the old bell rings once. And for a single heartbeat, the world trembles. Not from fear, but from remembrance. They say if you stand close enough, you can still feel her breath, warm, forgiving, on the back of your neck. And if your heart dares to answer, the cathedral will shake again. Just once. Like heaven remembering what it felt like to be human.